You're listening to Mind Over Markets, a podcast on trading psychology to help you build a bulletproof mindset. Here's your hosts, George Papazov and Mark Borscht.
Let's talk about how to set SMART goals. So you know that goals are important. You know that's advice I'd give myself to the younger me. So let's help you set some goals. So we're going to use neuro-linguistic programming. It's called NLP, how to set SMART goals. You've heard of the acronym before: simple, measurable, achievable, and realistic. But we're going to put and expand those out to have some more of an NLP framework behind them. So the acronym spells SMART. That's why they're called SMART goals. The S in SMART traditionally stands for simple or specific, but I want to take it a step further and say see yourself in them. That's the additional S in NLP of SMART goals. You need to see yourself from a dissociated view. I think some of the mistakes that people make when they make a goal is, they say, I want to have $1 million at the end of the year, but they don't actually realistically see themselves in the situation where they've gotten it. So your subconscious mind doesn't believe you, right? It's like, that's cute. It's nice that you want that. But the way you've programmed me over the years and what I'm trained to believe, I don't believe you. It's like, we don't believe you. You need more people kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a disconnect between the logical brain and the subconscious brain.
Exactly. And you got to be able to see yourself in those goals. They have to be simple and specific. That's what the S stands for. I'll give you an example of a good goal that incorporates the S. I want to make $300 US a day trading. That's a great, simple, specific goal that you could actually see yourself in the process of doing. Here's a bad one. Not a bad one, but it's not specific enough. I want to make 50% of my income trading, 10% designing websites, and the rest doing something I love. It's very confusing. And how many people do that, right? We mean well, but we're very good as humans at starting projects. Very few actually complete them. And goals, reaching your goal is the act of completion, right? It's something that we need to sort of understand and grasp with. If you scatter yourself and spread yourself out so thin that 50% income trading, 10% this, the rest doing that, your brain doesn't even do the math. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm confused. And so that's a bad interpretation of it. So when you're thinking of your goal, make it super simple, very specific, and it's something that you can actually see yourself doing. There has to be some kind of behavior attached to it. So if it's just, I want $1 million, that's not very specific either, because while the number's specific, what do you see yourself doing with that $1 million? It doesn't tell you anything, right? It'd be more important to create a goal that would be an action item you're doing as a result of having $1 million rather than the $1 million itself. So if you had $1 million in your bank, what would you do? Maybe you take a vacation. All right, well, set the goal to be that vacation because that's more important than the $1 million itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just kind of to that point, the subconscious mind is a great order taker, and it needs to have very clear and concise directives.
Absolutely.
Right? In order to get what you want. And we can relate this back to, I think it was the third or the fourth episode where we talked about the trader from Societe Generale. That
Jerome Kerviel.
Exactly, Jerome Kerviel, that lost a good chunk of money. And at one point he was, kind of quoted saying that he wanted to be, I believe the quote was something along the lines of, I want to be an extraordinary trader.
Yeah.
Something like that. All right. And he got what he wanted. He wasn't as specific as, I want to be an extraordinary trader known for great profits, anything like that. He just said, I want to be an extraordinary trader.
Yeah.
And guess what he got? Would you consider losing a sum of, to the tune of over $1 billion to be an extraordinary trader?
That's extraordinary.
That's extraordinary. It might not be exactly what he envisioned, but because, that request to the subconscious was so objective and it was so bland, there wasn't as concrete, it wasn't clear, there was not very much clarity behind that. He got what he wanted, right? The universe will provide what you ask of it. And so big importance with the S. It's got to be specific, and you've got to be able to see yourself almost kind of like an out-of-body experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? That's the first thing that I thought of. I'm more of a visual kind of person, and as soon as George said, you got to see yourself disassociated, the first thing that creeped into my mind was just like a third-party view of yourself, looking at yourself from a out-of-body experience. And if you can kind of get into that state where you're able to associate yourself to these goals with that kind of a degree of clarity, where you can actually see yourself experiencing that from, if you will, an out of body experience, then, that is a good goal.
And you know what the importance of that is, Mark? Seeing yourself doing the action like, let's say your goal is $1 million, and seeing yourself deposit the last $1,000 check, for example, that makes that $1 million, achieves your goal. You know what the importance of seeing it from a dissociated point of view is? It's the act of witnessing the completion of that goal that makes it important, right? You're witnessing the goal being completed. Therefore, it's going to have to get done. And that's the S. The next letter is M. So we're spelling out SMART here. So we talked about S. Let's get into M. Measurable and something that's meaningful to you. We kind of touched on this in the last section, but something that's measurable. For example, I want to be happier this year. Fantastic. But how much happier? How do you measure happiness?
Yeah.
What do you have to achieve in order to be happy? So you need to make it measurable, because if you don't make it measurable, there's two reasons you're not making your goal measurable. Number one, you don't believe you could achieve it, right? Or number two, it's an honest cop-out in case that you don't achieve it, right?
So goes back to the fear of failure versus fear of success.
Exactly.
Right?
So here's a good idea of a meaningful goal. I want to make $300 a day trading. That was, we take that away. We're going to work with this example as we walk through these letters. In S, that was our example. I want to make $300 a day trading. Now let's make it meaningful. That's not meaningful, all right? Why? What would you do once you kind of achieve it? That's what makes it meaningful to you. What is the purpose to you internally for achieving this goal? That's what creates the meaningfulness to it. So for a good example here would be, I want to make $300 a day day trading so I can finally quit my 9-to-5 job. All right. So it's not important that you make the $300 a day. What's important is that you leave your 9-to-5 job through the means of achieving this goal. Now you're making it mean something to you. And I would say that of the 80% of goals that fail for New Year's resolutions, I'm willing to bet that it's because they weren't really meaningful to the person. Anyways, they didn't attach them to meaning.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to, one of the studies that I managed to find here. And this was a study done in 98. So it's a little bit dated, by Miller and Marlatt, but it kind of suggests the following, that the ingredients for setting yourself up for resolution failure include: number one, not thinking about making resolutions until the last minute. Number two, reacting on New Year's Eve and making resolutions based on what's bothering you or is on your mind at that time. And number three, framing your resolutions as absolutes by saying, I will never do X again. Whereas the people that tend to have success with following the resolutions or with achieving the resolutions, number one, they have a strong initial commitment to make the change. Number two, they have coping strategies to deal with problems that will come up. And number three, they keep track of progress. The more monitoring you do and feedback you get, the better you will do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's a great list to get you excited for the whole idea of creating these goals. That's awesome. All right. And now let's move into the A of our acronym SMART here. A stands for achievable in our typical SMART interpretation. Like, this isn't new. You've heard it before. SMART goals. A is achievable, something that you could achieve. All right, great. But if you add a little bit more of an NLP technique to this, the A also stands for as if now. All right, and this is super important. So let me explain to you what I mean about as if now. Imagine you had a garden of super fertile soil, like it could grow anything, and you planted it in a seed, and this seed is like a beautiful flower. This flower is called I want to make money trading. So you plant the seed, you water it, you put in a lot of work. What's the flower that grows? I want to make money trading. It doesn't matter that you want to make it trading. If you continue to want something, you're going to generate a state in which the reality is that you continue to want it. That's the problem, is that we say, I want this. I'd like to have this. And as long as you want something, you're going to continue to want it and never have it. So the as if now assumes you already do have it. Super important. All right, I know some of you might think about the Martha Stewart reference, fake it till you make it. Absolutely. This is exactly what it's about. If you're saying, look, I don't have $1 million yet. How am I going to act like I have it? If you can't see yourself having $1 million here today now, you never will. That's the reality of it. All right, and that might be because it's not specific to you. It might be because you didn't make it meaningful. But if you can't see yourself having it as if though it's right now, there are other bigger issues. This goal is just not going to work. So, for example, these are phrases that you want to be using in your goal. I am making, I am doing, I am being. The key here is I am.
Yep. And if you guys have been listening along to the whole podcast series, you'll know that those 2 words are probably the most important in the English vocabulary. I am. Because whatever follows those 2 words, you best believe your subconscious is listening, and that's what it's going to attract.
Thanks for listening to the Mind Over Market podcast. You can find us at TRADEPROacademy.com.